How do I balance my child's weaknesses with their interests? And then once I've discovered my child's strengths, how do I incorporate developing these strengths into her learning environment? How do I provide time and space to sharpen my child's passions? Are these questions that you've been asking as you educate your children at home? I want to welcome you. You're going to enjoy today's conversation. I am going to be in a conversation. I have a guest with me today, and we're going to be talking about how to provide space for your children to discover, develop, and sharpen their strengths. This conversation is for you if you're looking for encouragement to stray off that standard path of education in order to provide a truly unique educational opportunity for your child. Jacqui Antonio is my guest today. I'm very excited to be to have her with me, and she recognized dyslexia, a learning disability, reading disability in her daughter, and she'll share her experiences educating her daughter as well as her son by providing space where they could discover, develop, and sharpen their unique interests, passions, and strengths while still acknowledging their weaknesses. My name is Diana Rolston, and I want to welcome you to Spark Homeschool Parent. Spark Homeschool Parent is an encouraging, non-judgmental community where we can share our questions, our doubts, our fears about homeschooling. You're going to enjoy today's conversation. If you want inspiration on how to focus on your children's strengths while still acknowledging her weaknesses, you're in the right place if you're looking for signs to look for when recognizing your children's interests and strengths. You're going to enjoy our conversation if you want ideas to incorporate your child's interests into his learning so that he can develop these interests. And you're in the right place if you're wondering how sharpening your child's passions benefits his life journey. Again, this is Spark Homeschool Parent, and I'm Diana Rolston. I really want to welcome you. Thank you for joining. And as you come on to this Facebook Live, just send a quick comment. I would love to hear where you're living, where you're listening from. We have listeners now and group members from all over Canada and growing in the United States too. So that's really exciting. I'd love to hear where you're from. And as I'm talking with my guests and while we're in conversation, if you have questions, send those over in the comments also. We'll try to address them when we're here. If not, I'll do that another time. But it really gives me an idea too of the questions and concerns, things that you grapple with as you're homeschooling, and gives me some more ideas about just different interviews and different Facebook Lives that I could be doing. Our conversation today is about strengths, and this is our month of focusing on that S in Spark, which is strengths. Again, I'm Diana Rolston, and today's conversation is how to provide space for children to discover, develop, and sharpen their strengths. The guest I have the privilege of talking with today began her homeschooling journey when her son was born in 1999. She says it began when he was born because that's when she started reading to him, talking to him, singing to him, creating an attachment, stimulating his brain, enriching his being, which became the foundation of their homeschooling. Her son is now in third year at Carleton University studying interactive multimedia design, and you'll hear how really it's perfectly suited to him. And her daughter's finishing her final year of education at home and hoping to embark on a dance career, which she has prepared for throughout her education. Jacqui, welcome. Let me bring you on here.
Thank you, Diana. It's a pleasure to be here. I just love what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited that you can share some of your experience in homeschooling. So thanks for joining.
Thank you.
As I was saying, you began your homeschooling journey, your home education journey early with your children, which is like such a blessing. Can you briefly explain those early years with your son and then your daughter a few years later?
Yeah, I was thinking about like what education means, as I was preparing for this, and I'm just partly my understanding of how I came to understand what educating was helping that child understand their world and helping that child learn how to interact with their world in a way that was mutually beneficial. And so we often think of what can my child get and how can they be functioning in a productive way in the world. But we usually kind of look at it from the perspective of what they're getting. But I think education is also about preparing our children to be to offer something to the world. So to me, that begins right at birth. What kind of environment do we create? So I did a lot of reading with Ethan as he was held in my arms. I read to him a lot, and 4 years later, when Mia was born, she would join in as this little baby while Ethan was reading his, because he read early while I was reading. And so we kind of
Mm.
created, reading was really essential, and we could read about everything. You know, the library is a homeschooling parent's
Oh, yeah.
best friend. It's such a great resource, and it's free, and you can explore so many different things just by reading, and so that was, I think, beginning of our homeschooling journey. We did a lot of just reading science or things that I found that Ethan, because he was the first, was interested in. So we read a lot about planets, and he
Mhm.
made his little solar system out of foil and balls, and get really upset when someone took a ball to play with because you're taking you apart my solar system. His cousins would look at him very strangely. It's like, what's he talking about?
That sounds like a very engaging, sort of natural learning environment. That sounds beautiful.
It was really wonderful. That part when they were little and we were just exploring. We were just exploring all there was to think about, and in ways that were appropriate, uh, and seeing where they latched onto.
Mm.
So that was really fun because I learned a whole bunch too.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
my education had been very narrow, and exploring all these different things that I really just heard about casually, but I can now sink my teeth into in a fun way with my kids. I really, really loved it. So it was stimulating for me too.
And our enthusiasm about learning really rubs off.
Mm.
So that's great that you say that. So in this, I'm just imagining this literature-rich, reading-rich environment. But then you suspected a reading disability with your daughter. Can
Yeah,
you share that?
it was interesting. Ethan read very early. I'm not exaggerating. By 3, he was reading. He just, and so, I had the expectation that my other child would be like that, foolishly thinking that, they have the same kind of capacities and potentials. But Mia, it was interesting because I was thinking about how she actually could write her name at
Mm.
2 in cursive. So she was able to write her name in cursive. So I thought, well, that she could write, she could read. But as we were sitting and we were learning reading, her struggle was evident. Her D's and B's were mixed up. She would reverse saw and was, classic kind of dyslexia things, and it was really a struggle. And that part of seeing your child struggle with something that many other people find easy, or they just, is painful. And so it's
Mm.
a painful period of time to see her frustrations, and for me to kind of think, what's going on? How come? Uh, uh,
Mm-hmm.
so there's this expectation, and then just gradually recognizing that there was an issue, and she needed some help, and we kind of embarked on a journey of trying to figure out what was best for her, which wasn't easy. It wasn't easy
No.
to figure out.
So what was your response? I actually, before you say that, I'm going to, I did a really informal poll on my Facebook group. I'm going to just put that up on the screen here.
Okay.
There we go. The question was, what do you do when you suspect a learning disability in your child? And I was happy to see that the highest score was you try a different teaching approach, which is always a great place to start.
Mm-hmm.
The next was seek professional support. And as an educational therapist myself, I was really happy to see that. And then I had to laugh because it actually was tied with continue on with the hope that things are going to improve. And I laughed because that sadly was my first response. And it wasn't until my children, sounds like you were much more on top of Mia's struggles, because it wasn't until my children were 12 that I really started to take it seriously and realize that maybe things aren't going to improve and maybe we need to do a quick intervention. And it was only at that time that I seeked out a professional support through a psychoeducational assessment.
Right.
What was your response with Mia?
Well, I had friends who had similar struggles with their kids, and so I kind of tapped into, okay, so what are you using? I kind of used their resources to help me, learn her words, and phonics wasn't working, so we had to use other approaches. But it was a trial and error, and yeah, it was hard for both of us. It was frustrating for both of us, and you know, then this comparative issue. You see your brother, you hear that he reads and he's reading, and he has all these books that he's reading, and you see your own struggle, and for some time that was hard for Mia. um,
Mm-hmm.
she began to have struggles with her self-image in terms of being smart, and that really is painful, because you can tell in interacting with your child that they have a way of understanding that is beautiful. Like, she's very intuitive. She would make these like inferences, just reading the Bible. She would see things that I go, wow, that I never thought of that. She
That's
just
not, yeah, sorry, that's not uncommon with children with dyslexia. They
mm,
also have sharpened auditory often. I mean, every child absolutely is different, but read like comprehension of things that they hear and stories that they hear is,
yeah,
yeah. So
that's
that's great.
it. And she would learn a song in no time.
Mm.
she she would hear the song and she would be singing all the lyrics, and I heard the song for years and I only knew the words. So I
You
was,
don't even listen to the words.
so I could tell that she had very evident strengths. And that was really good that we were able to see that we had that space to be able to pick that up, because if she were in a school setting, I may not have picked it up in the same way, and certainly there isn't that room to kind of hone in the way that you're teaching in school. And I know that there are resources, but in terms of just really providing that space to
Mm.
acknowledge your strengths, so that you're not tied into this one view of yourself. The weakness becomes more at the front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at a great comment from Ryan. He is a new listener to um, or participant in our group, and he just says he just loves the way that our conversations focus on more on the child's interests and um, yeah, but still recognizing the weaknesses. But congratulations to you because yeah, sometimes we can like really focus on those weaknesses. But then as a mom, you know too that it's the encouragement that you have to keep up with your child, and it's by acknowledging their strengths, and that's what really got her going, I guess.
Yeah. So from Mia's strengths are really evident um, from the time she was a baby. She could throw a ball directly to me. And she wasn't walking. She would throw the ball directly to me. And the first time it happened, I thought, that's funny how you could do that. And then she did it consistently. And so I began to see that kinesthetically, she's really had a great sense of body awareness, balance, and and she loved music. She would move in her little car seat. We called it the Mia Wiggle. She
Ah,
um, and so and she loves singing. So certainly her strengths are in the creative realm in terms of performing arts and visual arts. Yeah, both my kids spent a lot of time. They spent a lot of time drawing together on long trips. That's what
ah.
they would do, um, and they were good at it. So that's what we provided, like art supplies, a space to take, art classes or, um,
So
yeah.
it was it the case that you noticed these things? In Mia's case, you said the body awareness and her like interest in music. But for like drawing, did you or anything else? How did you actually? I guess what I'm trying to figure out how to ask this. Did you saw this interest and then you provided the resources, like you said, you saw their interest in drawing, or and then provided the paper and the crayons, or how
Yeah,
did you?
I think, like you provide things, right? And then what is this child veer towards?
Mm.
What they consistently come back to? So for Ethan, it was the computer, sadly, but good in another way. From the time he could barely speak, but he would say up tutor, which meant take me to the computer.
Oh.
And he became very proficient and started um, programming in his early teens. And so by the time he got into high school, where the computer courses were offered, he was proficient, and he learned a lot more than he would have in school, because again we provided the space. He was interested. He took his own courses. He decided to learn computer programming on his own. I didn't, because I have no interest in that, and that's not something I would have thought.
Yeah.
But I just kind of noticed, and he, as he got older, kind of directed his own path. With Mia, I knew that she would love dance, so we signed her up for dance and little homeschooling, the Gilman's basement, and she started when she was 3 and loved it, so kept doing it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
not thinking that she would really pursue it to the extent that she has, but it became evident that as as she got older, that she was very proficient at dance, and that's what she's pursuing now. So
I
it's a
was
blend.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. I want to just so that people can see how beautiful she is on her feet. I want to just post this picture that you provided of Mia.
Mm.
Just yeah, and clearly excels at that. Um, and then so the dance became sort of a course, I guess, that or like a part of the school week. And for Ethan, the computer programming became part of his learning also. How else did you incorporate um, the development of these skills into your children's learning environment?
I, signing up for courses. I thought robotics was a good fit for Ethan.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, so it sort of like not only providing the space at home for him to chart his own course and the thing that he was interested in, but also looking at how can he develop proficiency? So, getting registered for robotics, um, and for Ethan, it was sort of music as well. We noticed his love of rhythm and singing, and we sang a lot as a family because music is important in our family, and they loved it. And so then providing avenues, taking music lessons, um, and then there's also an investment. So buying things that are music related, the right kind of keyboard, getting involved in, like he got involved in a band. So encouraging him in those avenues as well, because you've got to take them places, right? So it's an
Mhm.
investment of time, but you can see that they're thriving. You can see that they're finding something to occupy themselves with, and it's enriching their lives. And then the other thing about it too is, then what are people saying, right? What are people who are interacting with them saying?
Mm.
Because that can also give you an idea that this isn't only something that they're interested in, but people are seeing that it brings them alive and that they're good at it. So for Ethan, when he was 14, and he was in the youth group, the youth leader then suggested that he join the worship team.
Mm.
I would have never thought of that. I had no idea that he'd be good enough at that point to do it. Um, but she said, "Yeah, let's give it a try." So listening to what other people are saying, because people are going to see them outside of the context in which you're living, um, and and taking that chance, kind of not restricting, having a larger vision than, well, you're going to do it this way and let's take it slowly, because opportunities come up. And that really opened up a huge door for him, and he's still up on a worship team playing the piano and singing. uh,
Mm.
I wouldn't have thought that he would have been ready. So what are other people seeing as well, is gives you that um, extended vision of what your child can accomplish.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you say that because my interview next week, we're talking about the importance of mentors and getting out into the community. And that's, especially you were saying, like computers is not something that you know a lot about, have an interest about. But when your child is interested in something that we really can't help them a lot with, to get them out into the community, and they just like gravitate towards those people with similar interests, and it's just so encouraging to see our children interact with adults with the same interests,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
having that mentor relationship also at some points, which it sounds like the worship pastor probably did that for Ethan.
Absolutely. And they were encouraging. There are people in our kids' lives who are going to encourage them in ways that we can't, and who can see what we can't, because again, like you say, that's not our forte. But there are people who see. So what are people seeing as their child interacts with them? Um, gives us more information, and is a source of encouragement for them. Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
I wanted to put onto the screen also, you sent over a portrait that Mia drew. So that's there. You can, our listeners can, or watchers can see that she is very creative. And then she's doing some baking.
Yeah, it's all kind of. I think of Mia as, and maybe this is how we need to look at our children. I was thinking about this morning. We are made in the image of God, and there are aspects of God that each of us kind of we're we shine in. So what aspect is that? And for Mia, I think it's like she loves to create something beautiful, just as God creates. I mean, he's
Mm.
very pragmatic, and he's made like our earth rich with rare earth. minerals and all those things. But he's also created like flowers of so many varieties, and one kind of flower of so many varieties. And he didn't have to make the world beautiful for us, really, but he
Mm.
did it because that's an aspect of his character. And I think Mia's character reflects that desire to make things beautiful. And that's when she gets excited. Oh, someone has a birthday, I can make them a cake. And
Ah,
she and I would just make the cake. I'm not a good baker. I would just make the cake, but she has to make the cake beautiful. She's not satisfied and she has this really, really lovely skill of making things beautiful.
ah. That
So
says a lot about her character too, and just wanting, having that caring aspect of her that she actually wants to do this for other people.
yeah,
So
and
she is now, or will be pursuing, or hoping to pursue a career in dance. And
yeah,
then Ethan, in his computer, his media arts, um, he has, you were saying, another year of that program.
yeah,
And
yes,
then he'll be possibly continuing on his education. So the work, well, I was going to say the work that you did, but the environment, the learning environment that you created clearly set them up to really succeed in what they are passionate about and their strengths. So congratulations on that.
thanks. God's grace, really.
And yeah, also because I mean, Mia will always have dyslexia. It's something that she can become a better reader, but will not probably be a novel writer or read extensively. But she's still going to, to reiterate that she's going to succeed. And for families that find that their children may have a disability in some area, by developing and recognizing and sharpening those strengths,
Hmm.
you can see that Mia is on the right path for success. So,
Yeah, I'm so happy that God makes us that way, that there's something that we can shine in and thrive in.
mm,
And being open to that in your child is so critical for their self-image and for them to find the place that God has for them.
hmm
That's part of our role. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's a beautiful way to end. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Although the conversation can continue, no doubt. But thanks very much for joining me and sharing your experiences and the success of your children. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And I'll just close off by saying this is Spark Homeschool Parent, and I'm committed to equipping you with the skills, the mindset to navigate this ever-changing homeschool journey. And these Facebook Lives are just a part of our conversation. We continue with encouragement and conversations, polls like the one that I mentioned today in the Spark Homeschool Parent Facebook group. So if you're not a part of that, then go to Facebook and become part of our group. And no doubt, if you're homeschooling, you know another homeschool family that just needs some encouragement and resources and would benefit from this group also. So share it, pass it on. I'm going to be here again next Friday at 1 o'clock with another guest. So I look forward to seeing you again. And I want to thank you again very much for joining us, Jacqui.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.